Hi, friends. Welcome to the Bunkhouse. Hello, friends. We're glad you joined us in the Bunkhouse today. We got a great show for you. My friend Joe Leathers from the world-famous 4-6 Ranch is here with us. And out of the chuckwagon, Bill and Cliff are fixing one of our favorite dishes, jalapeno cornbread. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
In the Bunkhouse is brought to you by the good folks at Cowboys and Indians magazine, the premier magazine of the West. Pay them a visit at www.cowboysindians.com.
I am so proud to have Joe Leathers join us in the Bunkhouse today. Joe's a very dear friend of mine and is the general manager of the world-famous 4-6 Ranches. Joe, thank you for coming by.
Thank you for asking me, Red.
There are a lot of challenges to ranching today, and I know that you've initiated and perpetuated some programs on the 4-6 Ranch that make a lot of difference in the land and the wildlife and the livestock.
Yeah, we have. Red, I went to work for the Sixes 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. And when I went to work there, that the entire ranch was covered with cedars and mesquites. It's just a thicket. And I've learned over the years, if you've got for instance, a 30% canopy of brush, you've lost 30% of your grass, approximately. And we work for an individual that has a vision for what can be and not what is. Ann is a visionary. And JJ and Mike Gibson were visionaries and realized that country could be cleared and returned back to its original state, the way it was when it was settled. Mm-hmm. And so they started a program years ago, between 8 and 10 years ago now is when we started real intensely. And I told Mike Gibson at the time that I didn't think he or I, either one, would live long enough to see that accomplished, to get the brush controlled on the ranch. But we just about got it, and it's a matter of maintenance. But, you know, we're not the only ones doing that. There's a lot of ranches that's working at it.
And you know, in the old days, the fire kept all that brush down, mm-hmm. because the natural fires would come through and clean out the young sprouts of the what we call cedar. Actually, they're mountain juniper, and clean out the young mesquites. And for some reason or another, we quit using fire as a tool a long time ago. We try to keep the fires from happening.
You can look at a map of the population of the United States from east to west. And then when you get to Texas, you can watch it populate from East Texas up to about Jacksboro in the you know, late 1800s was kind of the falling off spot for civilization, was Jacksboro. And as people came in and settled the country, they quit using control burns, if you will.
Right.
Indians would set fires to burn off the prairie because that'd be the first thing that would green up, and it'd bring the buffalo in.
Yes. And
then, of course, nature itself, lightning storms and what have you, and it would burn and keep the brush set back. But people are scared of fire, and fire is a tool that can be used.
Yes. And I've heard the statistics that a cedar tree or a mountain juniper tree 4 feet tall will drink 40 gallons of water a day, and then a mesquite tree 5 feet tall will drink 50 gallons of water a day, and they drink it from different levels.
Yeah.
The mesquite tree goes as far down with the roots as it needs to find the water. The cedar or the mountain juniper gets it from the surface. Does that cedar also sterilize the soil?
It does to an extent. That fodder that falls to the ground has some acid of some sort to it that keeps the soil from being good enough to grow grass.
And what happens to the streams and the water courses when you take that brush off?
All the springs and stuff start coming back. I've cleared some salt cedar out of some creeks, and where there wasn't any water standing or running, after we cleared the salt cedar off, we now have water holes there, and the creeks have started running again.
Salt cedar, that's another one that it's tamarack.
Yeah.
And it was imported from, was it Russia or the Ukraine?
But I don't know, but it wasn't a native
It
to
wasn't,
Texas.
but it was used to stop erosion, and it sure enough did that. But it also takes up water, and it just grows profusely.
Yeah.
Now, so you improve the carrying capacity as well as improve the wildlife.
Oh yeah. You know, there's a myth that cattle and wildlife can't work hand in hand, and that's not true. You know, we take off all the brush that we can, but we leave some cover for the wildlife. We leave some cover for the quail, quail hotels, if you will. And you know, you hear these hunters talk about, boy, they don't want a place that's been cleared because it hurts the deer hunting. They can't hunt deer in those cedars anyway. You can't get a shot. You can't see them.
Well, let's talk about something else. When Boots was with us, we talked about the way they handled horses in the early days in the Paladura. And today, you start those colts much younger. And is it because of the amount of feed that you have and the kind of feed that you have that they mature better? Or is it just simply because you've learned more as a horseman about how to handle those animals?
Well, a little of both. Our feed program nowadays is a lot better than it used to be. Know a lot more about health and nutrition for horses. Regardless, a 2-year-old can be broke as a 2-year-old, but he still doesn't need to be rode too hard as a 2-year-old. His bones aren't developed. He's not mentally ready to take the amount of pressure that it would take to work every day on him like you would an older horse. I've broke a lot of horses similar to the way Boots has done it, and I would get out of bed a lot easier if I'd have done it the way we do now. But Ray Hunt probably had the greatest influence in the United States on the way we break horses. Yes. We've done that. We've done it the Ray Hunt method, if you will, for years and years at the ranch, and we ride horses now that are more willing. We haven't built up resistance in them. When they're 3, you can ride them, break them as 2, ride them a little more when they're 3. When they're 4, they're in the rotation, and they're making hand.
And I can vouch for that because the greatest horses I've ever thrown a leg over came from the 4-6 ranch, and some of them that you had a good hand in breaking, and I'm so proud of that. And Joe, I'm so tickled to death that you took the time to come all the way to the bunkhouse and spend some time with us. I treasure your friendship, and
it's always a pleasure.
Really looking forward to the next time.
I enjoyed it, Red. Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, stop by your local newsstand. Pick up America's premier Western magazine, Cowboys and Indians. It brings you the beauty, the grandeur, and the drama of the American West 8 times a year. Stay with us. We'll be right back. When I was out at the wagon a little while ago, Bill and Cliff were fixing jalapeno cornbread, one of the favorites of the boys. And I know that if I don't get out there before too long, there won't be any left.
What are we fixing up, Bill?
Well, we fixed what we call a jalapeno cornbread, and I don't have it. We just had a couple of ears. We actually cut the corn off the ears and put it in here, and put a little jalapeno, fresh onion, little milk, and a little agent and make it rise.
If you wanted to, you could add a little sausage or a little bacon to it.
You could.
Of course.
And it really would have all the food groups in it.
Everything you need right there. And I'll get this.
We cook red, and you can cook it in Dutch ovens, you know, with the bread and these things. But we use a lot of these cake pans or liners to keep from messing the oven up with things sticking. Yeah, we heated this up, or oil, just like you do in cornbread in the cast iron deal. And then we're going to put it in here and put it in a deal. We've got one. We put a little bit of water in the bottom, and I've got some horseshoes in the bottom, just keep it off the bottom.
You have a little trouble keeping the dust out of that food, too, with the wind blowing like it is.
Yeah.
Hurt nothing.
You know, we're going to get a few ashes in anyway with wind blowing like this. Just don't tell them, just put it out.
Clifford, do you think that cornbread's ready?
I believe it is, Red. Would you like to try it?
I'd love to try it.
Okay.
Got a little corn squeezing to go with it. Yeah.
It looked like you done good, Bill.
Well, that browned up pretty good.
You bet. I tell you that, there's a plate of beans and you'd be rigged up.
You bet.
Cut a chunk out of that. Tell you what, you better be careful. You are going to be hot.
Red, that's going to be hot.
Oh, I'm not going to hold it. I'm just going to take a bite of it.
Here, let's cut.
Oh, I told you.
I'd like to read a poem by one of the greatest poets of our time, my dear friend Joel Nelson. He lives out in Alpine, a cowboy deluxe. This is a poem called The Men Who Ride No More. Bronc to breakfast calendars hang fading on the walls. There's a lost and aimless wandering through corridors and halls of slippered feet that shuffle on a waxed and polished floor, and vacant stares of emptiness from men who ride no more. Men who once rode proudly, men with long straight backs, men who covered hill and plain with steel-shod horses' tracks, now pass their idle days in rooms with numbers on the doors, with orderlies and nurses for the men who ride no more. Time was when spur rowels jingled, when boot heels bumped the floor, and dawns with hot black coffee and saddling up at 4. With feet in tapaderos and broncs between their knees, and silken neck scarves snapping as they turned into the breeze. From full-blown living legends true to riding for the brand, to the scarcely mediocre who could hardly make a hand, they would gather for the Brandons, for the shipping in the fall. Now it's walker, cane, and wheelchair in the antiseptic hall. And they all have their mementos on the table by their side, like a cracked and fading snapshot of a horse they used to ride, or standing with the wife beside a 37 Ford, a high-heeled boot hooked nonchalant on a muddy running board. Just instances frozen from the past that somehow give a clue to who and what they were before their riding days were through. Horseback men with horseback rules from horseback days of yore. Their one and only wish would be to somehow ride once more, to once more rope a soggy calf and drag it to the fire, to long trot for a day and to see no post or wire, to ride a morning circle, catch a fresh one out at noon, and trot him in when day was done to the rising of the moon. To put in one more horseback day and have just one more chance to ride home to a pretty wife and drive her to a dance, to take her hand and hold her close and waltz across the floor before the time to join the ranks of the men who ride no more. Well, as my old daddy would say, we got this one saucered and blowed. It's time for us to ride on out of here. We got lots of work to do. We're glad you chose to ride along with us, and we hope we taught you something about the cowboy you didn't know, or maybe brought back an old memory. I'd like to invite you to listen to us on Cowboy Corner on your local radio station, and also I'd want you to pick up the latest edition of Cowboys and Indians magazine at your local newsstand. It's the premier Western magazine. And I'd like to thank the boys, Old Dan and Leon, Jake, and Badger. And I'd like to know that you're going to be right here in the bunkhouse with us next week at the same time. Adios, my friends.
I'd like to thank the folks at Schaefer for providing my wardrobe from the Red Steagall collection.